Hello, crawlers. Considering more than 30,000 people have already pledged nearly $8 million to this game, I'm probably not the first to break the news, but just in case, did you know there's a Dungeon Crawler Carl RPG? Josh and I have been listening to these audiobooks together recently. We're on book 3, and if you haven't heard of Dungeon Crawler Carl, it's basically what happens if an apocalypse, a reality show, and an RPG rule set all had a deeply cursed baby together. Part of what makes the series so fun is that the game mechanics are baked directly into the story. As you're listening, you're constantly trying to piece together how the system works. Like, okay, this skill gives you 5% more bite damage, but under the wrong conditions, it might also summon 100 undead Cocker Spaniels. Or I don't know, maybe those are the right conditions. I guess it depends on your goals. And with the new Dungeon Crawler Carl RPG, we can do more than just watch. Now we can create our own crawlers and venture into our own dungeons and summon our own hordes of undead Cocker Spaniels. And because the books already have this highly specific game logic underneath them, the RPG is way more than just another dungeon crawler. Believe it or not, the massive multi-level televised murder trap isn't the most unique part of this game. I think it's actually the characters. If you don't believe me, I don't blame you. When we think hack and slash, most of us don't leap to nuanced character portrayal. So to show you what I mean, I am gonna make myself into a crawler, survive my season, and then graduate into the most terrifying role of them all, Game Master. So what are we waiting for? Let's get out there and kill, kill, kill. If this is your first time hearing about these books, where have you been? Trapped in a dungeon by intergalactic aliens or something? Dungeon Crawler Carl is an insanely popular book series by Matt Dinniman that the folks at Renegade Game Studios have transformed into a role-playing game. An RPG inspired by a book inspired by RPGs. Turtles all the way down, folks. In the world of Dungeon Crawler Carl, Earth has been basically destroyed. That's not a spoiler, by the way, that's like page 1. Most everything is dead, and the surviving humans have been dropped into a massive, deadly dungeon. The basic premise is that any survivor who makes it to the final stairwell on the 18th floor has won back Earth from the invading aliens. That's the story, but really the whole thing is just a big, highly profitable galactic reality show. And like all reality shows, it's totally rigged. No offense, Great British Bake Off. You're the only good one. I'm a sucker for an isekai story where regular people get pulled into crazy adventures, and this is the ultimate version of that. Because the dungeon in this world is operated by an advanced alien species, to give the humans a fighting chance, every crawler, no matter their background, can become a badass. An insurance salesman can become a master swordsman. Even a cat can gain sentience and start casting magic missile.
I assure you, I am already plenty sentient.
Since when can you talk?
Today's sponsor thought you could use some help. Plus, I like it like this. Now you can't ignore me when it's dinner time.
This is reversible, right? Hey! Hey, get back here! This video is sponsored by Renegade Game Studios and the Dungeon Crawler Carl RPG. They gave me free reign to tell you guys about whatever part of the game I find most interesting, and I'm sure it's no surprise to anyone that I am excited about characters. As a player, you can mix and match or even invent classes, backgrounds, skills, and more. There are basically infinite combinations, which means you can make your crawler just as unique and special as the ones in the books. It is truly so impressive that the designers have managed to create a game where you start firmly in the regular Joe space and then transition seamlessly into the punching a dinosaur to death space. And as a game master, every mob and crawler killer and game guide and talk show host in the dungeon is yours to play with. There are stat blocks pulled straight from the books alongside brand new content, so even super fans won't know what's coming next. Plus, you can always play Mad Scientist and use the resources in the Game Master's toolkit to birth your very own abominations. Game Masters get to create and roleplay a system AI who can make crawlers' lives easier or harder and absolutely place favorites. There's even guidance for Game Masters to run talk show interviews between levels. There's a starter set if you want to jump right in. It's a complete game experience covering floors 1 and 2 with the full rule set, pre-made characters, an adventure, monsters, items, everything you need to start playing right away. Then the core rulebooks expand things into floors 3 through 5 with deeper customization and progression for those who want to play out a sprawling dungeon crawl turned intergalactic revolution in their own style. Renegade has also hinted that more books may be coming in the future to explore even deeper floors of the dungeon. If you pledge on BackerKit now, you'll get early access to digital content when it's ready, plus campaign-exclusive extras like this Prepotente dice bag, which perfectly captures my emotional state every time I roll below a 10. Check it all out at the link in the description. Or don't, I'm not your game guide. Yet. We're probably both thinking the same thing right now. Let's say it at the same time. 1, 2, 3. Ginny would never survive the world dungeon for even 5 seconds, that little wimp. Oh, that's not what you were thinking? You're so nice to me. But the fact is, I am a lifelong nerd and not the cool kind who learned actual sword fighting. I make a lot of jokes about always carrying a sword, but owning a sword and knowing how to use a sword are two totally different skill trees. The most threatening thing about me is that I will notice when you misuse your, and unfortunately that has very little tactical value in combat. And frankly, surviving an apocalypse sounds difficult. I am a soft indoor creature. My ideal afternoon is indulging in a $6 coffee and then taking photos of the new leaves on my houseplants. I think in a real doomsday scenario, I'd be one of the people who gets vaporized in the first 5 minutes to show everybody that this is serious, guys. My actual strengths are mostly intellectual and creative, which feel like they would be less than useful when a horde of festering ghouls are charging directly at my face. I don't think my strong narrative instincts are gonna spontaneously cure the DTs. But let's imagine I somehow make it into the dungeon alive. Hey, it's fantasy, suspend your disbelief. That makes me Crawler Ginny. And before the system AI starts giving me skills and upgrades and uncomfortably foot-centric wearables, we have to figure out how my real-world background has prepared me for this moment. This is all executed with skills. You start with 10, all based on different parts of your life. You choose 2 skills you gained from childhood, 2 from adolescence, 2 from your career, and 2 from your hobbies. You'll also get 2 combat skills based on how you survive entering the dungeon, but more on that in a minute. We will start with childhood, when a gangly little Ginny once wore a purple sweatshirt with a cat on it that said perfect every day for an entire school year. For each category, there's a list of backgrounds to choose from, and every background gives you 3 skill options from which you pick 2. For this first one, I am choosing Teacher's Pet. Out of the 3 options here, I am picking Good First Impression, because I was a real pleasure to have in class, you guys, and Perception, because I am observant in all the worst ways. I might not notice useful things, but I'll detect a weird tone shift in a text message and think about it exclusively for 6 to 8 business days. Each of these skills gets written down on my crawler sheet. You can read the full details of how each skill works in the rulebook, sort of like spells in D&D, but the sheet includes the basics that you'll be referencing the most: the skill's rank, the related stat and modifier, and what type of check it is. For example, Perception is an intelligence skill. Childhood skills start out at rank 1, and it's an unopposed skill check, basically a check made against a static difficulty rather than against another character. We can't fill in our modifiers until we have our stats, so we'll come back to that in a minute. Bam! Puberty. It's time for adolescent skills, which also start at rank 1. There is a nerd option, but it feels geared more towards the kinds of nerds who went to robotics camp, whereas I went to vocal jazz camp. So I'm picking drama nerd and selecting performance and fabricate. I skipped deception because despite doing a lot of performing, I am a terrible liar, like alarmingly bad. You should see me try to play a deceptive NPC. My whole body starts behaving like I'm under active FBI questioning. Next up is career. These are skills that you've gained from your professional life, so you get to start at rank 3 for them. There is an entertainer background, which would make total sense for me, but you're actually not allowed to double up on skills during character creation. If 2 backgrounds would give you the same skill, you don't get to stack them, which is fair because otherwise I would accidentally create a build that's just like rank 15 in prancing around wearing elf ear prosthetics and nothing else. So instead, I chose small business owner. That gives me determined value and negotiation, which are skills I'm sure my CPA would be thrilled if I actually developed. Finally, we get to hobbies, where I discovered that yet again, there is a perfect fit, but I've already covered 2 of those 3 skills. There is literally a cosplay hobby option. My problem at this point is that I am simply too on brand. So instead, this felt like the perfect place to try one particularly fun option from the books, creating your own skill. So I'm taking the cosplay hobby, which starts at rank 2, and I'm picking salvage from that list because who among us hasn't gone full Sound of Music and made a dress from thrift store curtains? But then for that second selection, I have created my own skill that I am calling in character. The rules encourage this, of course, because one of the most fun parts of the Dungeon Crawler Carl books is the weirdly specific skills and features that the characters get. Any game where former child actor is an entire class is a game that should not have a finite set of options. In the section about creating your own skills, the book encourages you to reskin skills when possible to save you the trouble of working out something balanced, but also provides guidance for mixing and matching the parts of other skills or inventing your own from whole cloth. For in costume, I am choosing to reskin the stealth skill, but instead of being good at hiding, I'm good at disappearing into a costume. Sometimes even I watch myself arguing with Necrasha and I'm like, damn, why is she being so mean though? The idea is that once I'm in costume and I've changed not just my appearance, but my posture and mannerisms and voice, people only see the character. It's gonna be the same as stealth, but as a charisma skill instead of dexterity. Turns out you don't need to be dexterous to cosplay. Now it's time for those combat skills. Unarmed combat starts at rank 3 for all crawlers, which is honestly already so generous and so unrealistic for me. Pretty sure my fist has never intentionally collided with another human's flesh with anything approaching violent velocity. And And if it did, I guarantee my fist would lose. This goes on to my attacks list, which is separate from the skills list. It's very similar to the way D&D attacks are written, so you have a quick little reference for your modifiers and your damage dice. In this case, it is 1d4 plus strength. You also get to enter with a weapon, something you would have believably had on you when you first entered the dungeon. You're encouraged to get creative with your weapon flavor and then just borrow the mechanics from an existing, more standard weapon. So maybe you work at a department store and you enter the dungeon with the severed leg of a mannequin, but you write it down as mannequin leg, parentheses, club. As tempted as I am to pick some sort of whimsical thematic starting weapon like sewing scissors or something, that is absolutely out of the question. Those can only be used on fabric. You heathen. I think we all know where this is going. After all, I am always carrying it. There is a longsword in the rules, and it deals a big ol' 1d8 damage, so even though I'm sure my strength modifier will be quite low, it's still gonna be doing twice as much damage as my unarmed strikes. But if we're being real here, I will end up learning and using spells in the long run. This is not the body of a martial character. Once I get my feet under me and I start learning some magic, you will see me abandon my professed love of bladed weapons faster than you can say new achievement. So now we have all of our skills and attacks, but none of them actually have modifiers yet, which brings us to stats. Dungeon Crawler Carl uses 5 core stats: strength, dexterity, constitution, intelligence, and charisma, which is basically the same lineup as D&D, except there's no wisdom, presumably because anyone with actual wisdom would never walk into a mysterious underground murder labyrinth in the first place. Your stats are going to be pretty low at the beginning because crawlers aren't superheroes. They're regular people who just happened to survive the apocalypse long enough to walk into floor 1. Most human stats start somewhere between 2 and 6. You can either use standard array or roll for stats, but unlike D&D, rolling is ruthless. You go straight down the sheet in order, no rearranging afterwards. Which, to be fair, is basically how real life works. When I was born, some cosmic D6 was like, give that one noodle arms. I'm using standard array to recreate the version of Ginny that the universe already randomly generated. Strength is obviously a 2, as evidenced by the aforementioned noodle arms. I am putting my second highest score, a 5, into intelligence. I'd love to put the 6 there, but let's be real, int-forward characters don't become YouTubers. Constitution is a 4, dexterity is a 3, and then I'm putting my highest score, a 6, into charisma. My literal profession is convincing strangers on the internet to listen to me talk about fantasy games for 20 uninterrupted minutes, and that has to count for something.
Low strength, low dexterity, questionable survival odds.
You recreationally lick plastic bags.
And yet I would outlast you.
He wouldn't. Probably. One quick note, you'll see that on the character sheet, every stat has 2 versions, enhanced and unenhanced. Right now, those numbers are exactly the same because I do not yet own enchanted knee pads or an amulet that makes an awful lot more inexplicable wet noises than you would generally prefer an amulet to make, so for now, don't worry about that. Once your stats are assigned, you calculate your stat mods using a chart. These are the numbers that actually get added to rolls, attacks, and skills. Now we just have a few more little bookkeeping tasks before we get to the fun stuff. And by fun stuff, I mean trauma. Yes, trauma is on your character sheet. If you think about it, isn't it really on all of our character sheets? First up, evade. This is basically your please don't hit me score. You can use evade as an action when something tries to hit you, and if you're lucky, they won't. It's just your dexterity modifier, which for me is +2. Someday that might get a buff added to it if I'm evasive enough to survive that long. Next up is the health bar. Instead of tracking a giant pool of hit points that slowly counts downward, your health is divided into 10 chunks. Your total health is based on constitution times 10, and each section of the bar represents 10% of that total. Since my constitution is 4, my health total becomes 40. Then I fill in each slot in the health bar with my con modifier, which is +2. This confused me a little at first because I thought that those 10 2s were supposed to total 40, which they obviously do not, but those 2s aren't hit points, they're damage thresholds. Basically, every chunk of damage has to break through one of those thresholds to remove a section of your health bar. So if something dealt 6 damage to me, I would lose 3 chunks. If it dealt 7 damage, I would still only lose 3 chunks because that extra 1 point isn't enough to push through a 4th threshold. Don't you love tabletop games? Or as I like to call it, group arithmetic. Now we gotta talk mana. Mana is a spellcasting resource, and unlike D&D, every crawler has mana and is capable of casting spells regardless of their class. Mana is determined by your intelligence score, not just your modifier, so since my intelligence is 5, I get 5 mana. That means I can cast 5 points worth of spells before I need to rest or chug a potion or otherwise magically rehydrate. But what will I spend it on? You might be asking, I have no spells. Actually, that's not technically true. Every crawler gets the heal spell right away. Apparently, the apocalypse comes with universal healthcare. It's kind of sounding better and better, to be honest. This brings me to a special section of the inventory called the hot list. There are 10 slots, and anything in those slots can be quickly and easily accessed either during or out of combat. Anything that's in your larger inventory is harder to access on the fly because it has to be first placed on the hot list and then accessed. Spells need to be placed on your hot list in order to be cast, which is basically Dungeon Crawler Carl's way of doing prepared spells. Right now, heal is the only thing on my hot list, but eventually it'll get filled up with potions and useful items and hopefully more magic. Next up, move and step. Move is how far you can travel during your turn, and step is a smaller movement that you can take without spending your full movement. Every crawler starts with 20 feet of move and 10 feet of step. I'm sorry, was that too normal? Don't worry, there's a much weirder mechanic coming, AI favor. Book readers will know that the World Dungeon is operated by a system AI that rewards crawlers for being entertaining. Remember, this is a reality show. If you fight in flashy or creative or dramatic ways, you can earn favor from the system AI, which can be spent to re-roll checks or gain extra non-attack actions. Human crawlers start with 1 AI favor, which I'm choosing to interpret as the AI being mildly intrigued by me. Not impressed necessarily, just willing to keep the camera on me for a few more seconds to see if I do something embarrassing. And finally, size. This one is easy, humans are medium, and I am no exception. We are down to the final 2 steps. I promised trauma, and I am a woman of my word. Alongside your inventory is where the emotional baggage is stored. There is a box for past trauma, a box for loose ends, and a box for regrets. These aren't just flavor text, they're actually a storytelling tool. In Dungeon Crawler Carl, this section helps communicate what kinds of emotional hooks matter to your character, what they're afraid of, what unfinished business they're carrying around. It gives the GM material to work with, but more importantly, it gives everyone at the table a shared understanding of what kinds of stories you're interested in telling. This also doubles as an effective way to make sure your GM has guidance for creating meaningful drama without accidentally stepping into places that feel too real or too personal for you. Speaking of too real and too personal, you came here to watch me build a silly little crawler, not witness a therapy session, so this is where we're diverging from real life Ginny and inventing some emotionally compelling fake problems. My trauma? I was falsely accused of a crime, which is ridiculous. Obviously, I've never imprisoned a dozen clones of myself in a basement for the purposes of content production. That is a malicious rumor, and even if I had created an underground labor force of identical Ginnies, I would never force them to wear silly costumes. I'm not a monster. Oh my god, what part of Do Not Disturb do you not understand? Sorry about that. Anyway, my loose end is that try as I might, I never hit 1 million YouTube subscribers. I was so close. All I wanted was to see big number. But now YouTube no longer exists because civilization collapsed, which honestly might be a net positive for humanity. But somehow I remain haunted by the fact that I never got that golden plaque. And finally, regret. One of the options is I spent too much time on something pointless. If I'm being honest, there is a tiny part of me that would love to know whether my final moments on this earth were spent arguing in the comments about the Marshall-Caster divide. We have reached the final step, starting stuff. What did you have on your person when the world ended? Every crawler gets a few basic essentials automatically, and when I say a few, I mean it. This is not your grandpa's 50 feet of hempen rope. You get like 5 things, and one of them could easily be like a gas station pickle or a dog leash. As funny as it would be to say that I entered the dungeon in full cosplay, realistically, that is not how it would happen. You guys have a carefully curated window through which you see me looking like I give a but 99.9% of the time I am wearing jeans and a sweatshirt. I have my longsword, of course. You might be asking, is this technically a longsword? And I don't know. Looks pretty long to me. I get one interesting or useful item, and I'm choosing a set of dice. I don't know exactly how dice become useful in an underground death labyrinth, but I do know for a fact that I would have them on me. The other day I reached into my purse looking for lip balm and pulled out a random D20. I have absolutely no memory of why it was there. Last but not least, there is weird stuff. The only instruction we're given here is be creative. So I picked a bottle of prosthetic adhesive and some pothos cuttings. I know I don't need any more pothos, but what am I supposed to do with what I prune off? Throw them away? They're alive. And, for now at least, so is Crawler Ginny. If through some combination of luck, audience appeal, and sheer spite I were to make it through an entire season, there would be a logical next step. I would stop being a crawler and I would become a game guide. In the books, surviving the dungeon doesn't just mean getting stronger. If you make it far enough, you might eventually stop being a crawler entirely and instead become a game guide. In the Dungeon Crawler Carl novels, this is Mordecai, an alcoholic changeling with a tragic backstory, a passion for potion craft, and the deeply exhausted energy of a man who has watched far too many idiots wander into a death maze without a plan.
I would make an exceptional game guide.
Oh, look at your little princess costume! Where did you get that? Princess Pablo.
This is a level 90 coronet of shielding. It gives me protection against idiots and vet techs.
Oh, they're gonna love that outfit at the vet.
Death first.
Game guides are former crawlers who survived their own season and later took a deal to work with the system. They guide new crawlers through the tutorial floors, explain mechanics, answer questions, and try with varying levels of emotional investment to keep people alive long enough to become entertaining. They're mentors, handlers, and reluctant co-workers to the people currently trying not to die. But game guides are not just another NPC. Sure, they can be really practical as a way for the game master to communicate important information to their player characters, but they're also a former protagonist. They had their own season, their own party, their own traumas and loose ends and unearned YouTube plaques. They're someone who already lived through the kind of story your players are about to experience. The Game Master's Toolkit includes some sample game guide profiles, and they're pretty straightforward. Each one is a level 50 guild master with their own race and class and a few paragraphs of background. Since game guides are all non-combatant NPCs, this narrative background is really the meat of the character. We already built Crawler Ginny, so now let's imagine the version of her who actually survived. What happened between then and now? What kind of person comes out the other side of something like this? Race and class options live in the full core rulebook, which goes much deeper into long-term progression, but won't be available until the Backer Kit campaign delivers. Just like in the books, those choices unlock when your crawler reaches floor 3, but I think I can hazard a pretty good guess at where this is going. There's a class in the series that Donut specifically does not choose, and I regret to inform you that it sounds custom built in a lab to appeal directly to me. It is called the Necrobard. A musical necromancer? I could raise skeleton backup singers? You can stop me from choosing that class over my undead body. As far as race goes, realistically, I would be on the lookout for one that just makes this my natural hair color. There are many things I could endure in the dungeon, but visible root grow out is not one of them. It'd be like, I don't know, land mermaid or something. The rules encourage you to think about a game guide's history as a crawler, what floors they survived, what kind of reputation they built, what relationships they lost, and what emotional baggage they carry into this role. Since your party is only ever going to have one game guide, this is a recurring NPC who will show up over and over, which means the more depth and complexity they have, the more they can contribute to the story. That history should affect how they teach. A cautious survivor gives different advice than a reckless one. Someone who lost their whole party might keep emotional distance from new crawlers. Someone who succeeded through charisma might encourage negotiation before violence. Their past becomes part of how they roleplay. So if I'm building Guildmaster Ginny, I think her story goes something like this. She entered the dungeon as an anxious creative who was scared of the dungeon, but even more scared of dying in it. Early on, she realized she was never going to outmuscle anybody, so she leaned into becoming indispensable to stronger crawlers. When she hit floor 3, she embraced the Necrobard path, not for evil villain reasons, but because raising undead allies is a fantastic solution when you personally do not want to stand near danger. And maybe also for evil villain reasons, a little. But you can't prove that. Most people die in this world, so statistically, she probably lost her entire party. And as a necromancer, it could have easily gotten more up from there. Now that she's a guide, she's probably cheerful and friendly on the surface, but deep down, she's way too invested in protecting her crawlers the way she wasn't able to protect her party. And she would probably do that the best way she knows how. Branding, baby. What's your content strategy? What's your hook? Where's your curiosity gap? You'll definitely be on camera the moment of the kill, so if you can find a natural way to work in a call to action, that would be ideal. A game guide is such a unique and useful NPC format. They can warn players about danger without spoiling it. They can explain the world without sounding like a lore dump. They can become trusted or suspicious or comforting or funny, depending on how you choose to play them. They might lead players astray or give them bad advice. They might get drunk or pick a fight and be inaccessible for a while. They are basically the perfect Game Master's multi-tool. And I give you permission to use Guildmaster Ginny the level 50 Necrobard in your game if you want. Just make sure there's at least one skeleton doo-wop scene. It's really important for the image. After digging through all of this, I think what makes Dungeon Crawler Carl stand out isn't just the chaos or the dark humor or the fact that everything's trying to kill you, it's actually the characters. There are a lot of Dungeon Crawler RPGs out there. Plenty of games where you build an adventurer, grab a sword, and start kicking down doors. But Dungeon Crawler Carl manages to walk this incredibly fine line between having player characters that feel like real people, not superheroes, but still letting them become incredible badasses who do amazing things. Plus, the NPCs sit in this super unique gray area that I don't think I've seen in any other game. Sure, there are monsters, and there will be plenty of times when you are plowing through hordes of mobs like a meat grinder, but those monsters have also been imbued with their own messed up sentience that makes them sympathetic while still being seriously dangerous. There are other crawlers, but whether they'll want to team up with you or take you out is anyone's guess. And there are all these specific NPC concepts that are just incredible springboards for GM creativity. The talk show hosts, the system AI, the game guides. You'll be creating and running NPCs in this game that are like nothing you've run in other tabletop games. And not just because they're a naked crab tour wearing a bug mask. If you want to check out the Dungeon Crawler Carl RPG, the Backer Kit campaign is live right now at the link in the description, and that's where you can learn more about the books, see all the campaign exclusives, and make your own pledge. They're also crowdfunding a Dungeon Crawler Carl deck builder game called Unstoppable. It's perfect if you want something smaller and faster to throw at your friends while you decide whether you're emotionally prepared to enter the world dungeon. Anyway, if civilization collapses tomorrow, I'll see you all on floor 1. And so will Princess Pablo, I guess.
Frankly, I think you would slow me down. But on the other paw, what if I need to open a door? Something to think about.